Welcome to the Fantasy News Guys podcast with your hosts, Bud and Bud.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy News Guys. We are here, week one in the books, Fantasy League Fantastico. A real thrilling week, some blowouts. We've got a lot to cover here, and let's get right to it. My name is Bud, and of course, my partner Bud is still in contract holdout. So I will be sailing the ship here today, as I did here on our maiden voyage. And we will wait to, see the status of Bud in the coming weeks. Last I heard, he was spotted in the Himalayas, of all places. I believe the Yeti needed a pack mule, and thus there he is carrying pots and pans and the Yeti socks and whatnot. And of course, probably some sort of satellite contraption to follow the fantasy on Sunday. And they were hiking I think it was Kilimanjaro, the Himalayas. We don't know. But the Yeti is doing what the Yeti does, and Bud is there to support him. And of course, the Yeti laid the hammer down on the chin sacks, which, Bud always had a soft spot in his heart for those chin sacks. So, took it on the chin there this week. Hopefully, we'll see a rebound from them.
And here's your league news.
Moving on here, let's start with some league news. First of all, we've got our first week of the FAB budget has come and gone. So far, pretty quiet out there on the waiver wire. We had a few moves. Of course, the goods went ahead and spent almost half their FAB budget on Marcus Mariota, which was a bit of a surprise. Not sure he understood exactly how all that works. So let's do a quick recap of FAB budget. You've got $100 to last you the whole season. As you see there, the Peaceful Warriors got Brandon Coleman for $6. Some of the other players there went for $5. We'll do a review of the waiver wire, and I'll call out my winner of the waiver this week. But just to know, when you spend $15 on Marcus Mariota, when you probably could have got him for $5 or less, you're probably overspending a little bit. Know that your bid is what you're paying. It's not like eBay where you get the next dollar higher than the bidder before you. So if you bid $15 and the lowest other bid was $5, you're not going to get dinged $6. You're going to get dinged $15. So know that. And we will move along here with FAB budget. I think it'll make a real level playing field for all waiver claims. One other bit of news here, a change this year, is involving trades in the Fantasy League Fantastico. In the past, a commissioner would approve all trades. Of course, with that comes shouts of corruption. Most notably, the rollers, always very verbose on the chat boards about a corrupt commissioner's office and things. So what they've done this year, the Fantasy League Fantastico, is going to put trades up to league votes. So when a trade is been agreed upon by two managers, it will be submitted to the league, and everyone will vote yay or nay on that trade, and then it'll be processed. So we'll want to get that done in a timely manner. So when a trade is announced, please go to your email and cast your vote. Be fair. If you have a reason for not approving a trade, you better be ready to say what that reason is. Okay, we had a draft right before week one. We haven't had a show since, so we're going to do a quick draft recap here. I'm going to tell you who I thought won the draft and who I thought butchered it. I had a couple of teams I really liked what they did. Of course, the Peaceful Warriors for me always seem to know what they're doing. They've got a balanced approach. They go with upside. I like what they did at running back, grabbing Arian Foster in the 6th round. Looks like he's coming back. Mir Abdul looks like an upside play. And then the Megatron, Jordan Matthews. Megatron slow out of the gate there first week, but he should be fine. My other winner was the fire-spitting Jimmies. Contrary to what's happened here week 1, I thought they had a great draft. They took players that fell to them. The Gronk opened up football on a Thursday night and lit the world on fire with multiple touchdowns. Got a real nice running back core: Mark Ingram, Doug Martin, Latavius Murray, and LeGarrette Blount. I think he's got lots of depth there. Andre Johnson, question mark, and obviously now he's got an injury to Dez. But coming out of the gates, not a strong receiving core, but I liked his running backs, and I did like his tight end, Tony Romo, running the show at quarterback. Those are my winners of the draft, the Warriors and the Jimmies. And, of course, my 2 losers of this draft, the Goods. He came in with, I think, a bunch of cocktail napkins with some names from last year and maybe 2011, and he drafted accordingly. He stacked his roster with a bunch of average Chargers, and I think he's already gutted half the roster and spent half his budget on mediocre players to replenish. So not a good start for the Goods. We'll see how things go for them. And Mason Keat-Colby. I had Mason Keat-Colby surprisingly as a bust at draft day. He took a lot of heat from the other managers at the time. I thought it was a reach with Carlos Hyde in the 3rd. I thought he could have waited there. Getting an aging Steve Smith, Roddy White, Denard Robinson. I think some of these guys have already been cut from his roster. Top half of his draft was fine. The bottom half showed that he was spending a little bit more time with the children and not enough time on the fantasy podcasts getting his knowledge. So, wherever his priorities are, that's his business. That's your draft review here, and we'll move forward as we've already known the results of week 1, and no one cares about the draft anymore.
Week 1 recap.
Let's do a quick recap of week 1 and what happened there in Fantasy League Fantastico. Well, now looking at the results here, my introduction, trying to build a little excitement for Fantasy League Fantastico, proves here to be not the case. Week 1 was a series of blowouts. The Peaceful Warriors handling Redonkulous by 30 points. Of course, Mason Keat-Colby shocking the world after being called out on draft day, and he drops 186 on the Rollers. Rollers, of course, don't break 100. A lot of injuries there they had to deal with. There'll be better days ahead. Fire-spitting Jimmies, a nice, comfortable win over the Goods, putting up 136 points. But, of course, losing Dez Bryant, and that's going to really hurt them going forward. Luckily, they had the handcuff there in Terrence Williams. Moving on, we've got our hiker, the Big Yeti. He's somewhere up in the mountains, following along with his team, of course. Puts 160 right on those chin sacks. Taking it on the chin sack, I would say. And they blow him out by 60. Lunches for Wimps. The second highest point total of the week, 167. Of course, one of the perennial doormats of the league, Dr. Dick, getting squashed there. So a good draft for Dr. Dick. He had a little help there on draft day, we think. And he put together a decent team, and I think he's got some upside there. We'll see how the Dick does here in week 2. And finally, once again, Sergeant Hugo Stiglitz on the losing end. He starts out 0-1, losing to the Mofos, a team looking to be on the rise here, 136 to 111. So that's your week 1. What I like to do every week is just call out, give out a couple of awards here. We're going to call them the Wellies and the Smellies. These awards are basically one team that I feel is a healthy team, a team on the rise. Showed it there with their results in week 1, and they're a team that you should look at going forward. And that team, for me, and it pains me to say it. I dogged them on draft day.
And now it's time for the Wellies and the Smellies.
Okay, well, this part of our show is going to be a weekly segment where we award one team that is a team on the rise, a team that we feel performed well in week one, and is a team that is healthy and has things in the right direction. And then we're going to award another team that is the opposite of the spectrum. They're a team that is lost. They lack leadership. They lack depth of the roster. They appear to be a team that will lose weekly and is heading in the wrong direction. So we're going to call these awards the Wellies and the Smellies. So if you are the lucky recipient of a Wellie, you get a pat on the back and you get the thumbs up, seal of approval from the Fantasy News guys. And if you get a Smelly award, well, Fantasy News guys think you smell. Okay, here we go. After week one, looking at the draft, looking at week one, we love, well, let's start with our Smelly award. I think it would be easy when you look at what happened week one to look and say the Rollers are the smelliest team out there. But if you dig deep and you look at the roster, they've got a CJ Spiller, they have Mike Evans hurt, they had some other guys banged up, they couldn't put together what they drafted. So we're going to give them a pass on that. We think they've got a decent team. But what we are concerned with is a team called the Chin Sacks. Now, this team got demolished by the Yeti, lost by 60. They drafted some questionable running backs. C.J. Anderson coming out of the gates could be in a timeshare early. Frank Gore looks old. He's cramping up. Isaiah Crowell, these Jonathan Stewart, some middling guys here. A.J. Green, is he maybe lost a step here? Ryan Tannehill didn't look good. Devontae Adams getting vultured there by James Jones. I think this team is struggling, and I don't see a lot of light at the end of this tunnel. He's going to have to work the wire, maybe make a trade, because he could find himself 0-3, 0-4 here pretty quickly and struggling to do something. Now, obviously, we had a huge performance here by Mason Keat Colby, and you would think that I would award the Welly award to Mason Keat Colby. But on the contrary, we are all in with a team called the Mofos. We love what the Mofos are doing right now. The system gave them a draft grade of A, which we thought was a little questionable. We thought that they didn't draft enough running back depth. But what's he gone and done? He's been filling in the gaps right away. D'Angelo Williams gave him a nice production. He's grabbed Chris Johnson for this week, and he's got Todd Gurley waiting. So with Lamar Miller there as his lead back, we're okay with what he's got at running back. He's got now Witten, who's going to step into a major role at tight end, a veteran guy. And then he's got great receivers there. Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham Jr., and Kendall Wright may have found himself a quarterback in Marcus Mariota. So right now, our award for the Welly this week is going to the Mofos. Congratulations, you guys are on the right track.
And now it's time for Spitting Fire with the Jimmies.
The bottom of the barrel in winemaking terms is often referred to as the dregs. The same term could also apply to the teams who continually sink to the bottom in the Fantasy League Fantastico. These dregs stomp their grapes, metaphor for draft their teams, for those of you who cannot follow the analogy, bottle the juice, put a cork in it, rack it, and hope for a Grand Cru Bordeaux. Week 1 is now in the books, and the team you bottled has now been uncorked. For some of us, our vintage shows some signs of promise, complexity, and depth, a team worthy of our efforts. And with a little laying down, will age and mature gracefully. Then there is Chateau Suck Dicks, Roller Family Winery, and Chin Sacks Mountain Vineyard, who have unearthed a terroir of straw, barnyard, and dirt, reminiscent of a pigsty. Upon first sniff, you get a little peaceful pussy on the nose, followed by notes of shit, ass, and penis of redonkulous. The authentic Chianti, Alaskan ice wine, and the Muscat all have a bouquet most resembling toe jam, ball sweat, and sulfur. Let us raise our glasses and rejoice in the season now upon us.
Okay, thank you, Jimmy's. Let's move along here and take a peek at the waiver ads that came in here over the Tuesday night waiver period. And we take a quick peek here. Looks like Brandon Coleman went to the Peaceful Warriors, Jordan Reed to the Chin Sacks, couple of nice pickups. We think our winner here was the Dante Moncrief to the Goods. We thought he was the jewel to pick up this week. Brandon Coleman was enticing as well, but Dante Moncrief went for $10 to the Goods. Possibly a little overpriced, but I think he could be a player that helps the Goods out this week and beyond, as Andre Johnson looking a little aged. Once again, we mentioned that Marcus Mariota also went to the Goods for $15 and Ladarius Green for $10. Ladarius Green probably could have been picked up for $1 or even let the waiver period end and just pick him up as a free agent. But the Goods, I think, are still kind of grasping where we're at here. Mariota, obviously, for $15, he should, in the Goods' eyes, put together a Cam Newton type freshman year here in the NFL, which I think would be pretty tall order here for that young man to do. But we shall see.
And now the power rankings.
So we're going to give you our top 5 teams here in Fantasy League Fantastico. So here we go, starting from 5 and going to our top team here in the power rankings. Let's start with number 5 here, and that is Lunch is for Wimps. Surprisingly, the draft didn't look overwhelming here, but the team came to play in week 1. We love Julio Jones. I think LaShawn McCoy has better days. DeAndre Hopkins could be one of the best receivers in all of football. And we'll see some better things out of Allen Robinson. So I think his receiver core is strong. His running backs are good. And now Tom Brady to play a full season. We've got LI4W there at number 5. Number 4, and this will shock a lot of people, we have the Rollers. We love what the Rollers did on draft day. They never draft running back depth, and it will hurt them down the road. But for now, I think they're going to get healthy this week. Mike Evans, C.J. Spiller back in there. Got a top-flight tight end in Greg Olsen. Jeremy Maclin will do better. He had a bit of a sluggy night last night. He's got 2 tight ends, Martellus Bennett as well, Matt Ryan, the captain of his ship, and, of course, Marshawn Lynch. We think the Rollers have a stacked starting lineup. They lack depth, but for now, they're our number 4 power ranked team. Coming in at number 3, the Peaceful Warriors. I think the Peaceful Warriors came in drafting Le'Veon Bell and said, let's win 1 out of the first 2 weeks and we're happy. Of course, they came out and put up a huge number and won in week 1, so I think they're heading the right direction here, and they're going to get Le'Veon next week, along with possibly an Arian Foster in the coming weeks. So that running back depth will fill in with the Calvin Johnson and the Jordan Matthews and the Jarvis Landry, one of the top receiving cores here in Fantasy League Fantastico. Sam Bradford, a quarterback, on the rise here in the best offense in the league. If he can stay healthy, that could be a power rank team with an asterisk next to it. Look out for the Warriors. Coming in at number 2, this is our Welly Award winner, the Mofos. We just love the Mofos, starting wide receivers. Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham Jr. could win them weeks just by themselves. Lamar Miller and the Todd Gurley. The Todd Gurley will be the difference here. We could see him in the next couple of weeks, and that could be huge. Russell Wilson, Jason Witten rounding it out. That's a solid team. They are currently number 2 and a team to watch. And number 1, we had to do it. We all panned him on draft day, but he's running around at the local bar scene calling himself the running back whisperer for drafting Jamal Charles, Carlos Hyde, and Chris Ivory. Let's see when Carlos Hyde has to face some of these NFC West defenses and Christopher Ivory goes down for the 8th time in his career with injury. But in the meantime, as we stand now, he's got Big Ben, he's got T.Y. Hilton, a little banged up, but we'll see. Keenan Allen put in an epic performance that will probably not be duplicated. But for now, your number one power ranked team here in Fantasy League Fantastico calls himself MKC, Mason Keat Colby. So there it is, the power rankings.
This week's predictions.
And finally, we are going to take a look here at week 2 and give you some of our predictions. Of course, we had Thursday night football last night, so we know a bit of the landscape here. We'd like to get this podcast out a little sooner in the coming weeks, but given our busy schedules, this is how it goes. But I don't think much has changed. Last night, you had an epic battle between the Yeti and the Sergeant Hugo Stiglitz team. Of course, these gentlemen are brothers in real life, so this rivalry runs real deep. We're talking wiffle ball in the cul-de-sac, throwing bats at each other, noogies and Charlie horses. These two don't like each other when it comes to fantasy football, and it showed last night. It's a 32-28 match at this point. Looks like Hugo has the edge in projections, but the Yeti coming down from the mountain, he's got some up his sleeve. I'm going to go with Sergeant Hugo in this one, though. I think he comes off a snake bite last week. He gets the ship right, and those teams go to 1-1. Right below that, I look at the Dr. Dick team taking on Mofos. When you give out a Welly Award to a team, you got to stand by them. I've got the Mofos winning handily in that matchup and putting Dr. Dick there at 0-2. Fire Spitting Jimmy's taking on Lunches for Wimps. The Wimps, coming off a huge win to open up their season. Jimmy suffered that terrible loss of Dez Bryant, but they do have Terrence Williams. We like the grit of that team. They're confident. They think they can weather this storm. And we're going to go with them. We're going to knock off our power-ranked team of LI4W. We're going to take the upset there and the Fire-Spitting Jimmies in a narrow margin. Bottom of the barrel teams, the Goods and Chin Sacks. Chin Sacks, of course, getting our Smelly Award this week. They're duking it out. Chin Sacks is currently projecting 106 points on the live projection. That's about as bad as it gets, and I don't think it's getting better this week. When it's all said and done, I think the Chin Sacks takes it on the chin, and that sack hangs a little bit lower this week. Goods go to 1-1, and Chin Sacks will end up in 12th place. Moving on, Peaceful Warriors taking on the Rollers. Again, these are all division rival games here. We start off in division play the first few weeks, so this one has big ramifications. The Rollers trying to get right. Looks like they're going to have a healthy team. Peaceful Warriors still waiting on a couple of those running backs by next week, but I think the Warriors can hold them off here and escape with a win, just because I don't know about Mike Evans and CJ Spiller, one or either, if they're healthy. I don't know if they're going to have enough. We're going to take the Peaceful Warriors winning by 15 points. And finally, in that same division, we've got Redonkulous and Mason Keat Colby. Thus far, that Darjeeling division, just the powerhouse division with Colby, Warriors, Redonkulous, and the Rollers. You've got 3 power-ranked teams in there. Redonkulous coming off a tough loss to the Warriors, taking on the red-hot Mason Keat Colby. Put up a nice little Jamal Charles night last night to start things off. You got to like Mason Keat Colby right now. I think he's got some good matchups. He's going to run you Carlos Hyde and Christopher Ivory right out of the gates. Big Ben. I don't know if Redonkulous can hold him off. I think they go to 0-2, and Colby will probably be our number 1 power ranked team again next week as they win handily here in week 2 and go to 2-0. So that should about do it here. Oh, before we go, I don't want to not mention that this podcast is brought to you by our new sponsor, our first sponsor here, Touchdown Catering. I don't have their slogan yet, but I think it's got to do something with, score touchdowns and eat good food, and you're going to love Touchdown Catering. Okay. We just signed the deal today with Touchdown Catering, so that's all I got. But in the coming weeks, we'll maybe have a representative on here and let them say a couple of words. I'll have a little bit better script on Touchdown Catering. But if you want to get some more information, you go there to touchdowncatering.com, where you'll find a website under construction. Okay, well, that's a wrap here. For everybody behind the scenes, my name is Bud, and you're listening to the Fantasy News Guys. Thanks again, and we will see you after it's all said and done. Week 3 will be here. Have a great night. Bye-bye.